Yo, what's the deal? It's your boy HenDog, and welcome to the HenDog Half. It is June 5th, 2022. It is a beautiful day, and we are live from Lowell, Massachusetts. The sun's out, the sky is blue, the clouds are white, and it is a beautiful day, and I hope you're enjoying this Sunday with your family, your loved ones, your significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever you like spending time with and maximizing those minutes. Remember, there's always enough time, but there's never enough life. So always maximize those minutes and those hours with whoever you're spending time with and that's making you happy. Today is episode 4 of the HenDog Half, but it's part of a 3-part series that we're gonna title, I'm Injured, This Sucks, It Hurts. We are talking about injuries, bodily injuries, sports injuries, injuries you obtain at work, injuries you might obtain in a car accident. We're talking bodily injuries, and we're going to break it down into 3 parts. We're going to be talking about the shoulder injuries, we're going to be talking about lower back muscle injuries, and then on the 3rd episode, we're going to be talking about my favorite, injured knees, everything about an injured knee that we could talk about. So, like anything, when you're recovering and you are at home and you're trying to get better from an injury, you got to drink your water, and that's why today we are sponsored in part by Fiji water. When you're home and you're recovering, drink Fiji water. It's a little more expensive, but it tastes great. Water always helps with the healing process, so I want you to drink some water. If it's Fiji, do it up. If you want to do something else like Poland Spring, Arctic Blast, whatever it is, please get your water in, because water is very, very important, and it's one of my favorite drinks of all time. But today, we are going to be talking about injuries to the shoulder. We're going to be talking about the anatomy and physiology of the shoulder. What makes up the shoulder? What makes up everything that's going on in here? And what happens when it gets injured? And what happens when you recover? But this is a disclaimer. I am not an orthopedic surgeon. I am not a physical therapist. I am just a guy that's been injured a lot. So I have the experience of being diagnosed by doctors. I have been through physical therapy. I have been through occupational therapy, and I have done my own working out to keep all my injuries from getting re-injured. So please know that this is for educational and entertainment purposes. Please consult the doctor if you have any type of injuries that you need to get taken care of, because yeah, you can take a couple of informations here from a YouTube show, but only a doctor, CT, MRI scans, anything that can diagnose your specific injury is always seen by a doctor. So always go to your doctor, go to your physical therapist, and always get a professional opinion. So we're going to be talking about injuries, and I'm just going to go down injuries because I have a lot. So that's why I could speak about a lot of this stuff, because I lived through it. So going down from head to toe, Danny the HenDog has suffered 2 concussions, 3 broken noses. I have separated my right shoulder, and I have dislocated my left. I wear a sling today to show you what it is when you're injured in the shoulder, what the stuff that you have to do to try to recover. I have strained the lower back muscles of my back. They call it the erectus spinatus. And I have totally torn that up to the point where I couldn't walk. I was suffering from muscle spasms of the lower back. I've never had a vertebrae injury, which is a great thing. So I can't speak on vertebrae injuries, but I could definitely speak all day about blowing out your lower back. And then the cream of the crop, the money maker. I have blown out my left knee 3 times. I've had 4 surgeries for that left knee. And just recently, I am now taking care of an acute right knee injury that I suffered at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So yeah, you could say that I'm in a lot of pain and it sucks. But hey, we're here, we're living, and we're talking about it here on the YouTube. So to start off, I want to say why I am talking about injuries and talking about human anatomy and physiology. I'm actually a failed pre-med student. When I went to Northeastern my first 2 years, I was an honor roll for the first 2 years, and I wanted to go to medical school. That was the initial plan. But what had happened was physics and calculus got in the way. I got B's in in calculus, and I got, I think, a C plus the first time in physics. I retook it, but my averages weren't enough. And at 19 years old, it was very, very traumatizing for me to fail these classes and know that I'm probably not going to get into a medical school. In the future, obviously, I wound up being at bedside as a respiratory therapist anyway, but my love for human anatomy, my love for studying, and the thirst for knowledge that I got those 2 years, and then the rest of my 5 years at Northeastern, because Northeastern is a 5-year school, I gained all this knowledge, all of this textbook studying for tests and for exams and for writing papers. I have a really good base educationally when it comes to human anatomy and physiology. And of course, it's my own experience too. I have gone through orthopedic surgeries. I have gone through muscular injuries, which led me to physical therapy. I've led to occupational therapy for my hand once. So I understand all of these therapies that happens when you suffer a bodily injury, a sports injury, or unfortunately a traumatic injury like a car accident or anything like that. I love this stuff. I love talking about it, and that's why we're going to do this episode today. So how we're going to start off is, what is the shoulder? The shoulder is made up of 3 main bones. The shoulder is made out of the scapula, the humerus, and the clavicle. All of those 3 bones make up this shoulder. And the shoulder is connected by little rubber bands that are called ligaments. And those ligaments keep those bones connected and in place. And then on top of those ligaments are a big, big layer of muscles, which is what you see anytime someone's wearing a tank top, anytime someone's wearing a sleeveless tee. When you see that bump, those are big, big shoulder muscles that help the movements, the range of motions, the rotations of the shoulder. So when you got those three bones connected by rubber bands, ligaments, and then reinforced by the big muscles outside of those bones, we have something called the joint of articulation. That is what a shoulder is. The shoulder is a joint of articulation. It lets you rotate, it lets you flex, it lets you extend, it lets you do everything that you can with your shoulder right now. Everything, all of these motions, all of that, yeah, all of that is the joint of articulations. And the joint of articulations isn't just your shoulder, your elbow's one, your wrist is one, your ankles and your knees. All of these are free bones that have flat surfaces that connect by ligaments and by muscles, and they work together in order to give you that range of motion, the joints of articulation. Specifically today, we'll be talking about the shoulder. The shoulder is what you call an orthorodile joint. I needed to slow that down a little bit. Orthorodile joint. The orthorodile joint lets 2 bones slide forwards and backwards on it, forwards, backwards, up, down, rotating, boom, boom, all those good motions that the shoulder does when it is healthy. That makes it an orthorodile joint. The orthorodile joint is made up of 3 main ligaments. And this is where we are going to get the model. Boom. This is the inside of your shoulder. You got the scapula, which we just spoke about, the clavicle, and then here you got the humerus, the bone. This is the bicep, tricep. So this is facing forward right here. If you were getting an x-ray, this would be me right now, just chilling right there with the clavicles, scapula, and humerus. These 3 bones are connected by the ligaments. The ligaments that we're going to be talking about today are the acromion clavicular ligament, both superior and inferior. You have the coricoclavicular ligament, which is this little white little rubber band, as you want to call it. It's a ligament. It connects the bone. And then we're going to be talking about the third. The third one is the transverse subscapular ligament, which is this one that enforces that coricoclavicular ligament. So we're going to be talking about all 3 of these today, because that is what keeps the joints of articulation, the orthorodile joints, kept together. And it lets us move all these motions, these gliding motions, these rotating motions, these up and down motions, all of these All of these little ligaments is what keeps those bones together and keeps you from popping that shoulder out or going too far and letting the bones displace. All of these are kept together by the ligaments, by the rubber bands right here. All inside of your anatomy, your body is connected with ligaments, and that is how bones are connected. We're gonna break down each one of these ligaments real fast. So you have the acromioclavicular ligament. It has both superior and inferior. What it does is it connects this scapula, the shoulder blade, in layman's terms, the shoulder blade is right here. And it connects this clavicle right here, this bone right here that travels, and you can feel right here, you can palpitate it. Oh wow, look at that bone, that is the clavicle. The clavicle is connected to the acronium process. In the bones, you have we have a lot of things going on in the bones, but just to make it simple, we're going to be talking about foramen and processes. Processes is when a bone shoots out, it has a bony edge like here, and a foramen is where a little holes in the bones that allow the ligaments to anchor in. So you have the acronium clavicular ligament that goes superior, which means on top, and then inferior at the bottom. I'm sorry, yeah, you can see it right there. Boom, right there, the inferior acromioclavicular ligament. Those two ligaments make up what connects the scapula to the clavicle. From there, you have the chorioclavicular ligament. The chorioclavicular ligament connects the choinade process, which is this little guy sticking out over here, this part of the bone. What it does is now you got the acronium process and you got the coicid process. Both of those processes are now anchoring in that clavicle, that collarbone, in order to make those rotations, in order to allow all these bones to glide over each other, to rotate over each other. These bones are the rubber bands that keep that solid foundation in. And then the last one is I'm gonna look at my notes real fast on this last one. The superior transverse scapular ligament, right here, right, that little ligament right there, that rubber band, that is the one that anchors everything down to your scapula. Now you got connections from the clavicle to the acronium process of the scapula, and now you also got connections to the conchoid process by the superior transverse subscapular ligament, and you also got the clavicle ligament. The corticoclavicle ligament has two parts to it. Those two parts are called the trapezius and the conchoid ligaments. Both of those ligaments, you got the front one and you got the back one. Both of those make up the chorioclavicular ligament, and they're broke down by two, the trapezius and the conchoid. So now you have three main ligaments here that are keeping these articulations, or as they say, free bones and flat surface bones, all together, and allow the motions that we can do, that lets us throw baseballs, that lets us bench press, that lets us push equipment at the hospital, that lets us adjust at the auto repair guys, when they keep those arms up and they're working under your car. Those are all the ligaments that are working together in order to keep those shoulder bones together, in order to let them glide, rotate, and flex, extend, all that good stuff that a healthy shoulder does. That's what these ligaments help to do, along with the bones. They're all anchored in. So when you have those three ligaments going on, they keeping the bones together. So you got the bones that are the foundation, you got the ligaments that are the rubber bands that keep them all together, and then you got my favorites, the muscles. The muscles of the shoulders are huge compared to a lot of the other parts of the body, because they're big one-piece muscles that anchor at the neck, come down to the clavicle, come down to the scapula, come down to the humerus. So when you have those muscles here, what they do is now they allow the strength of the motions. They allow the flexibility of the motions in order to help your shoulder make all the rotations that it needs to do, all the movements, the quick movements, the short movements, all those, the pushing movements, the pulling movements that you're doing every single day and you're not even thinking about. These muscles are there to help give that force, to give that push in order to help to make your shoulder work exactly like it's supposed to work. When these muscles that make up the shoulder are called the trapezius muscle. I'm gonna flex here. Next time we're gonna get a model that weight lifts, for real. But you got right here, you got the trapezius muscle coming down from the neck down to the end of the clavicle. Then you got the deltoid. The deltoid is that big dome type of muscle that goes right over your shoulder. Basically what a normal person would call the shoulder, that is what is called the deltoid. You also got the pectoralis major, which is your pec, which is your chest muscles, which helps you breathe and all that. And then finally in the back, you have the latimus dorsi. You have the back muscle that helps pull things, that helps push things. When you got groups of muscles that are working together in order to contract and to relax, in order to help you make all those motions every day, we call those the antagonist muscle groups. These antagonist muscle groups, if the trap is flexing, then the lat in the back is going to relax. If you're pushing forward, the pectoralis major is flexing, it is pushing, it is making force, and then your latimus dorsi relaxes. When you're pulling something, the latimus dorsi is flexing, and you got the pectoralis major just chilling. It just relaxes. It allows for these motions to happen. They are called antagonist muscle groups. So now you got the ligaments, you got the acromioclavicular ligament, you got the chorioclavicular ligament, you got the superior transverse scapular ligaments, and now you have the four muscles. You have the deltoid, the trapezius, the pectoralis major, and the latimus dorsi. Those back muscles, those wings that we got in the back, those are our latimus dorsis. All of these muscles, all of these ligaments, all of these bones make up what we know now as the anatomy of the shoulder. It is one of the greatest joints in our body because it gives us full range of motions, all 360. If you're really flexible, you could do amazing things with your shoulders, especially if it's healthy, especially if it's flexible, and especially if it's strong. So all of these muscles groups, all of the ligaments in there, and all the three big bones that are in there, all make up a glenoid humeral joint. That is the name, the scientific name of that whole shoulder, the glenoid humerus joint. And in that glenohumerus joint, you have cartilage in between the bone. So you see the humerus and the scapula almost fit perfectly in there, but there is a cartilage inside of there that is called the labrum. The labrum keeps it together, and that labrum is very susceptible to damage when you got a separated shoulder, or even worse, a dislocated shoulder. Now that we know all the parts, all the bones, all the ligaments, all the muscles, you could get a lot more specific, but I'm keeping it real I'm not even keeping it real basic. I'm keeping it basic here. Anatomy and Physiology 1. What we're doing here now is looking at the damage that could happen to the shoulder. This shoulder is one of the greatest joints in our body. It lets us move around. It is strong. It is fast, but unfortunately, it is susceptible to injury. You got the bum shoulder, you know the pain. You can't lift up your arms, you can't turn your back because it's all connected. Your body is all connected. That's why when you have a traumatic injury to a part of your body, it hurts everywhere. I'm injured, it hurts, and it sucks because that's how it goes down. Here at the 19th minute now, we are going to talk about the different injuries that you could have to your shoulder. Your shoulder can have a lot of injuries. You could tear any of those ligaments, you could rip any of those muscles, you could break any of the bones. However, we're going to stick to 4 of the main main shoulder injuries that you see all over the place. You see it in football players, you'll see baseball players, I'm so sorry. You see it all over you see major shoulder injuries. It could happen from anything. It could be from a bad strain when you're reaching too far and your ligaments weren't ready for it. You weren't warm, or you just did it by force and it was too strong. Your ligaments can rip. Your muscles can tear, unfortunately. So the 4 injuries that we're going to be talking about today are going to be AC joint, the acromioclavicular joint separation, a shoulder separation. We're going to be talking about the humerus when it pops out of that scapula and it rips the labrum. We're going to be talking, that's called a dislocated shoulder. We're going to be talking about the sternoclavicular separation, which is when the ligament that connects your clavicle to your sternum tears apart, which is very similar to the AC joint separation. All of these. So to start off, we got the AC joint separation. You have the acromioclavicular joint separation. What happens here is, going back to those rubber bands, that big superior inferior AC ligament, what happens there is it tears, it rips. And there's 3 types of injuries that can happen to that ligament. There's first degree, which is just a stretch of that ligament. Then there's the second degree shoulder separation, which is a partial tear to that ligament. And then there's the third degree separation, which is a complete tear. That means this ligament rips apart and your clavicle and your acromion process of your shoulder blade is no longer connected. All 3 of those different types of shoulder injuries will cause a lot of pain, and it stinks. I suffered an AC joint separation in January 2021 at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was rolling with a brown belt. He wound up being world champion. It was 3 weeks before he won that world championship. I was his training partner. It was only maybe 3 of us in the gym, and he whooped my ass. And while he was whooping my ass, he tore out my shoulder. It's fine. I was going hard too, so it's mutual at jiu-jitsu. We all know you get injured here and there, especially if you're going with the world champion and you're an amateur like myself. But anyway, when that shoulder separated for me, I remember it just being a sharp, dull pain right here. Like it's weird to say sharp, dull, but it was like every time you moved it, it was dull. But every time like you were just sitting there, it would just be like electrical shocks. My AC joint was separated, and that was confirmed by an X-ray through a doctor when I went to the emergency room, because unfortunately I couldn't work and I needed to take a leave of absence because of it. And that shoulder, it took me about 4 weeks to heal up. From there, you have the next big injury that could happen, which is called a shoulder dislocation. What happens with a shoulder dislocation is you have the scapula here, you have the humerus here, the arm bone, and what happens is you separate that guy. Boom! It comes out of the socket. Ouch! It rips into that cartilage in between. It rips into that labrum in between your scapula and your humerus, your arm bone. And what happens there is it stretches all the ligaments out, and that is painful. A shoulder dislocation is when you see someone's shoulder just drop. You know, you might have seen it in a sporting game. You might have seen it in a movie where the shoulder just pops out of the joint, and that is super painful. Back, I think in 2015, I suffered a shoulder dislocation, once again at jiu-jitsu, but at this time, it was more of a wrestling type move. I landed on it real hard, and it popped out of place. I laid on the mat. My partner was like, I tapped out. My partner was like, whoa, dude, what happened? And it was like, yo, all I did was just pull my shoulder forward. I almost screamed in pain, but I think I might have popped it back into place. Obviously, I wound up not doing jiu-jitsu again for another 3 months when I dislocated that left shoulder. That stunk a lot, but it's okay. We recovered, and it is perfect now. So we got full range of motion. I'm wearing this brace because when you wear a brace, when you injure your shoulder, you have to keep it immobilized in order for it to heal. Probably for the first to second week of that injury, you're not doing any work. You're sitting home, you're icing it, and you're keeping it immobilized with a sling like this. So as I talk with this sling, and now that I introduced it, I could take it off because I was just using it as a demonstration. I don't need to wear the sling. I got awesome, good, very good range of motions in both my shoulders because they're both healthy. But when you suffer a dislocation or separation, you're going to be in a lot of pain, and it's going to suck and it's going to hurt. And it doesn't just happen at jiu-jitsu. It could happen anywhere. It could happen if you smash into a wall too hard. It could happen if you fall and you go to brace yourself. I was reading in one book where skiing is actually when you fall, like skiing or snowboarding, if you're doing those winters type sports, you could actually really hurt your shoulder when you fall and you brace yourself. So there's a lot of different ways you could hurt yourself. We live our lives on the edge, so we have to not worry about injuries like that. But in case it does happen, you'll know now by watching this HenDog half episode about, wow, did I really hurt my shoulder? And then you got to go to the doctor and get it taken care of, because that is where the healing process starts. And then you got other injuries. You got a labrum injury, which is a tear in the labrum, which is the cartilage in between the humerus and the scapula over here. That requires a very, 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 very intense surgery, but it is able to be repaired. So when you got these injuries, depending on the severity of the injury, whether it be the first degree separation, whether it be a total dislocation, whether it be a labrum tear, you need recovery time. You need time. You need to stop everything. You need to take that leave of absence at work. You need to ice it. You need to rest. You need to keep it immobilized in the sling. You need these braces. You need these things in order to get better. And other ways to get better are physical therapy. Physical therapy is basically working out in order to help that injury. Sorry, my model over here is falling on the floor. I didn't want it to break. So when you go to physical therapy, what they do there is they start with light ranges of motions. They start doing exercises like just lifting up and coming down, just up and down, just to see the range of motion. And then from there, they might start doing some lateral lifts. You bring up your arm, you bring it down, you bring it up, you bring it down. You start off very, very, very slow in physical therapy, in order for the physical therapist, and then in order for them to give the report back to your orthopedic surgeon or your orthopedic doctor, in order to tell them how your ranges of motions are getting better or are getting worse in your recovery. So physical therapy in the world of shoulder injuries is very important, because they could help you get back together and get that 360 range of motion, that whole movement, all those muscles, get them all better. And that's another type of injury that we didn't talk about, is muscle tears. You could tear your trapezius, you could tear your deltoid, you could tear all those muscles. And just like an AC joint separation, just like a dislocation, time and rest is exactly what you need. You can't be going out and trying to work a 12-hour shift. You can't be going to the supermarket and reaching over to that cereal on that top shelf, because all of those motions are all controlled by the muscles and the ligaments. So if you make a damage to that, it's gonna stink. So we have to get your range of motion together. We have to get your range of motion back in order to help you live your normal life and live under normal circumstances and not be in pain. From the physical therapy now, we're going to be talking about some of the exercises that I learned when I did both damage, the shoulder dislocation and then the AC joint separation to each shoulder. Some of the exercises that we did with physical therapy went from the pull down, which is just a lat pull down. I got the video going right now next to me. You'll see it. It is a simple grabbing the rope, maybe putting a little weight on there and just bringing it down, getting that range of motion of coming up and down in order to help that range of motion come back. Because when those ligaments tear, when those muscles tear in there, or even if you fracture a bone, you break your clavicle, you break your collarbone, you might do some damage to the scapula, the acromion process. So if you take a fall, it could hurt it really, really bad. These injuries require the different exercises with the physical therapy. So the second exercise that we're going to be talking about is the battle rope. The battle rope is grabbing that rope that you see at the gym, that you'll see guys like slamming up and down. No. If your shoulder's injured, all you're doing is you're grabbing. You're doing it back and forth, back and forth, one hand up and down. You got the video playing right now next to me. That is going to help you strengthen those muscles that help it glide, that help it rotate, that help it flex, that help it extend. That's what that battle rope does, those little motions of the range of motions in order to get back to 100% of your shoulder movements. You also have the grabbing the sword technique. It's called basically a lateral raise, but I call it the taking out the sword because that's the way I remembered it. Taking out the sword is where you start cross. You see the video playing right now. You start your arms crossed over your body and you come up. You come up to about head level, eyebrow level. You could look in the mirror. There's obviously so many mirrors in the gym or at your physical therapy offices. There's going to be that mirror that helps you look at your range of motion coming up and then coming down. You're taking that sword and you're showing it to the enemy. You're taking out that sword, you're showing it to the enemy. Then you have the standing row, which is just your simple grabbing the weight, grabbing the string, and you're coming up right here to your nose. You're raising up, coming here to the nose. And then one of the last and powerful exercises for your shoulder that it can be attributed to their physical therapy plan when you hurt your shoulder is the military press. The military press is here. I'm demonstrating it in the gym right there. Yes, a lot of people will argue that the military press is not good for your shoulders, but done right, it is very, very helpful in building up that trapezius, in building up that deltoid in order to make it stronger, make it bigger, in order for you to prevent future injuries. That's what the deltoid's there for. That's what trapezius is there for. That's the pectoral major, the latimus dorsi, getting those muscles built nice and strong in order to make them a good strength foundation for those ligaments that you tore, for that labrum that you tore, separating your shoulder or dislocating your shoulder. Or even worse, if you break a bone, it takes exercise in order to get these things 100%. And you need that type of therapy in order to recover from a separated shoulder, a dislocated shoulder, or even worse, a fractured bone in your shoulder. Shoulder injuries suck and they hurt a whole bunch, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that doing these exercises is going to be pain-free. It takes some pain in order to recover, and that's just the unfortunate thing. A lot of people have different levels of pain tolerance. I have a high pain tolerance. I've just all my life I've been able to deal with pain very well. Other people have low, and that's the thing, is you have to do your recovery to your own tolerance of it. You can't rush things. You can't think, I'm so strong, I'm gonna go back. No. You have to take time, recovery, rest, ice, compression. All of these things come together in order for you to recover that shoulder, in order for you to get that range of motion, in order for you to go to your normal activities of life without pain. It takes a little pain to get normal, but it's gonna be a lot more painful if you don't take care of the injury right. Please always see your orthopedic surgeon. Please always see your orthopedic doctor, or even your PCP, your primary care doctor. Urgent care, they could take care of these things. They could at least diagnose it so you know what injury you specifically have. There's a lot of different other injuries that could happen to you, but we won't get into all of them today. You're here, it is about the 29th minute, so we are coming up to the half hour of the HenDog half. Remember, shoulder injuries, any type of injuries, are going to suck and they are going to hurt. But we, as healthcare professionals, whether it's injuries to the lungs, like for me, or physical therapists, occupational therapists, these people have an education in order to get you better. And we have to listen to them. And I know sometimes physical therapists can be annoying, like, keep on working. And it's like you're in the gym and you're getting trained when you don't want to get trained. But this isn't training to get your muscles bigger. This isn't training in order to look cosmetically better. No, these exercises, this pain that you're going through is going to get your range of motion back to your shoulder so you can throw that 90 mile per hour fastball, so you can do the pull downs in jiu-jitsu, so you could pull guard and grab that lapel, so you can go and tackle that guy as he's running for the touchdown. Everything. Or even if it's, like I said, reaching the top shelf at the supermarket aisle, it's the little things like that that are gonna help you recover, because honestly, you don't want to live your whole life in pain, and you don't want to keep on re-injuring. And if you listen to your physical therapist, you listen to your occupational therapist, and you keep up with the workouts that they give you in order to recover that shoulder, you will come back and you will be in the game. Trust me, I speak from experience. I was on the couch, depressed and hurting, and taking Tylenol and ibuprofen and icing it. It stunk both times with both the AC separation and the dislocation, but I made it back and I'm in the gym again. So always listen to your medical professionals. Always stay in the gym, keep working out, and always, as always, take care of yourself and take care of each other. My name is Danny HenDog. This is the HenDog Half. Thank you for staying with me for the last half hour. I love you to death. Always like, subscribe, comment, send me an email. This is part 1 of I'm injured. It hurts. This sucks. We'll be coming back with part 2, lower back injuries. We'll be talking about all that. Enjoy the day. Thank you for watching. And as always, stay blessed, okay? And remember, drink that water, all right? Have a good day. Be good. Peace.